again, welcome inside the downtown Kansas City Marriott in Kansas City, Missouri for the Charleston Daily Mail. I'm still Mike Casazza, but I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball because we're covering basketball during football season. I don't think I could fit another sports vernacular in there, but this is the Wednesday walkthrough. Took the Tier 4 studio on the road this week. Don't worry, the hooch is in the minibar, but we're going to do the walkthrough right now, where we take a look ahead at the upcoming West Virginia University football game. And it's Baylor. It's the 4th ranked team in the country. It's the 3rd top 5 opponent in the first 7 games, 8 weeks for West Virginia. You figure these things get easier, at least the factor diminishes a lot for West Virginia. Played well against Alabama, played well in parts against Oklahoma. Didn't win either one of them. Time for West Virginia to win one of these games if they want to become relevant once again in the national landscape. Hasn't been that way since the middle of the 2012 season. This is a chance for West Virginia to make a lot of noise, not just in the Big 12, but around college football when, wow, the most important teams in college football have done that this season. At the very beginning, Ole Miss, Mississippi State were not the number 1 and 1A teams in the country. They were good teams in a really good conference. West Virginia is a good team in a really good conference. Not the number 1 team in the country, but certainly can put a number next to its name if it puts a big number up on Baylor on Saturday. A noon start for the Mountaineers, that is interesting because, well, how often do you see the number 4 team in the country play at noon? Not often, especially a team that has the buzz that Baylor does, not just because of what that team has done the last couple of years, what it did last week, 61-58, 24 unanswered points in the 4th quarter. Nothing to sneeze at there. They get a noon slot, though. It's harder on the team from the West coming to the East. I know a lot of people like to make a big deal out of West Virginia going to the West and playing at 11 a.m. kickoffs. It's still noon by their clock. If you're coming from the Central Time Zone, you're playing a noon game at the East. It's 11 a.m. for them there. It's a little bit unusual. It's more of an adjustment for the team coming over this way. It doesn't matter. Who knows? West Virginia has done well in the first quarters this year. Has scored in a lot of opening drives. Has only allowed 3 points on opening drives, 0 in the last 5 games. But Baylor is obviously a different animal, I guess. My mom and dad are coming to the game this week and coming up from Manassas, Virginia. They do this a lot. They come up for football games because, well, they like to see me once every so often during football and basketball season. They also like to tailgate and take aspirin. But they used to come up and see UConn and Syracuse, South Florida, Pitt, all those Big East teams, and you knew what to expect. This was pro-style football, not a very exciting style of football. They've seen some Big 12 football, but it's been Kansas or Iowa State, places, people like that, that it's just kind of not impressive. I'm going to have to sit down with the Cazazzas on Friday night and try to explain to them about who and what the Bears are because, as you know, as I know, as anybody watching this knows, it's not unusual. It is not your father's football, I guess, right? And that's the unique thing about this Big 12 experience. You get to see so many different styles and brands and ways to move and stop the football, but nobody does it better. Nobody does it more different than Baylor. And you begin with where they put their guys on offense. They have the star power on offense. Again, not something I have to tell you. It begins with Bryce Petty. He hands it off to Shock Linwood. They run to pound you up front, wear you down, pull you up, and then throw it over the top. But they just do so many weird things to you on defense. They'll just run 4 verticals again and again and again to blow out your corners, and then your corners are stuck in there, and they bring in 4 fresh receivers, and then that's when they complete those deep passes just because they've manipulated your coverage. They also spread the ball around, not just physically by throwing it this guy and this guy and this guy, but they'll line their receivers outside the numbers. They'll put their inside receivers way outside the hash marks. They make the most use of that 53 1/3 yards from left to right. Nobody does it quite like them. And then watch their trips packages on one side. They do a bunch of goofy, fun, interesting, and mostly effective stuff out of those trips packages. It just gives you so much to prepare about if you're the defense. West Virginia's defense, though, they know all that, right? This will be the 3rd time they've seen it, and Baylor does what it does, but just does it really well with very good players. They don't trick you a whole lot. Their formula is simple. It's just very hard to stop because the scheme is good and the players are great. West Virginia has to tackle, and West Virginia cannot lose its mind and jump up and turn a cover 3 into a cover 2. It can't forget that it's covering half of the field and then jump down to get on a slot receiver and leave the deep guy who the cornerback passed off. Those things have happened more than Tony Gibson once. It can't happen again. You're going to get beat. You're going to let a guy run by. You're going to miss a tackle. That's Baylor football. They beat you in space because they set you up in space and they have athletes. But rally the ball. So if you don't make the tackle, the guy who's behind you, the 2 guys behind you, your teammates who are running the ball, they can make the play. but don't lose your mind. What will West Virginia do? You're probably going to see 4 or 5 cornerbacks, not just Darrell Worley, Ickey Banks, Terrell Chestnut. Be ready for some Ricky Rumpf as your 4th corner, Jalen Myers as your 5th, and West Virginia's safeties, Drayvon Henry in the back, and then Carl Joseph and KJ Dillon. Those safeties positions in the slot are going to have to be probably great if West Virginia's defense is going to ultimately win this game. West Virginia's offense got a chance, right? Got a block up front. This is probably as good of a defensive line as West Virginia has seen. Not the best front, because Alabama and Oklahoma have had a better collection of 6 or 7 players, but the Baylor defensive line is ferocious, and it's Sean Oakman. It's the 6'9" monster who just throws people around and mauls you. He is a very physical guy. He's going to be a handful for West Virginia's offensive tackles, but he has a lot of help. Baylor with Phil Bennett. The Bears do what Kansas State did with Phil Bennett, what Pitt did with Phil Bennett, what Phil Bennett's done through his career. Blitz a lot. 0 blitzes, middle blitzes, outside blitzes. They load up the box, and they try to intimidate you up front. If not with the effective pressure, then with the threat of pressure, they make life difficult for you. We've talked a lot lately about West Virginia running to facilitate the pass. It may be different this time. You might see West Virginia come out passing a whole lot just because it makes more sense. This is a numbers game with the Mountaineers where soft boxes equal run, heavy boxes equal pass, and Baylor makes it a heavy box. They are going to put a lot of guys in the line of scrimmage, and if West Virginia wants to succeed, at least early on in this game, which again we think is going to be important, it might make sense to pass it and to get Kevin White and Mario Alford going. But again, don't forget the slot receivers, Da'Keil Shorts, Jordan Thompson. They're going to have good games, because if you can pass the ball, you can back the defense up and you can run it. And then if you run it, you got to bring it down, and then you pass it and you get everything spinning. And that's a lot like what Baylor does. Similar styles of offense, they skin the cat differently. Similar styles of defense, they just do it differently as well. Both teams are going to pressure just to take the other team out of rhythm and try to stop the run and cover the pass. And both teams are probably going to pass to run and run to pass. Big crowd coming, we think. Sellout for a noon kick. Again, not insignificant. Students taking up just about all their tickets. Dana Holgerson wants to hear them loud and wants to see them in the parking lot early. He probably wants to see them on the field afterwards celebrating. Is it a field rushing moment if it happens? Only time will tell. That's why we watch. See you on the blog Saturday. If you can't catch it online, watch it on TV, Fox Sports 1. See you next time. Thanks for stopping by for the Charleston Daily Mail. I am Mike Casazzo.